December 19th, Avon Board of Education meeting. It is now 7:02. I welcome everybody. Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Rell, would you be so kind as to do the honors?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item on the agenda, Avon Achievers. And who's going to do the presentation? Do I have to sign a certificate? I don't think I
No,
have to sign
we're
a
good. We're good.
Oh, we're good. All right.
But
Okay.
the items are over there.
All right.
Are
Excellent.
you planning to preside over the presentation?
No, go ahead. Why don't you?
Oh, all right.
But-
Well, usually you pick someone. That's
Uh,
fine. You pick someone?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. It's all you. Mr. Kimball.
It's all you.
How about if we, the first one is Sarah.
Sarah Parsons.
Congratulations. Thank you very much. You want to say a few words for yourself? You want to turn around and face the board or camera?
So the reason I had Sarah come up before I started to say the words, I think she needs to take all this in while she's here. And the reason being is, I've been in the district for about a year, and I can honestly say, Sarah's one of the first people in the morning to walk in, and I moved in there around 6 in the morning, so you're not too far behind me. In addition to that, she's one of the last people to leave. And in those hours between, she's a fierce advocate for her students. She works with some of our most needy kids, and there is not a day she does not come in with unbound energy to take over the world, and she will fight tooth and nail for whatever her gift be. And that passion comes across to your colleagues, it comes across to the students, and it definitely comes across to me. And I appreciate you with all my heart, and I am so happy that it's working.
Thank you.
First, Shelby Lynn. You're not aware that Shelby was the recipient of our Farmington Valley Superintendent's Award. And what can I say about Shelby? What should I say about her? You were one of four? One of four? You're the middle child? Second? You're the second. So Shelby is part of the Way of Love. She has done stuff for Relay for Life. She takes on this job here at the high school. And I talk about all the achievements and academics and such, but what I really want to say is that, similar to what we just spoke about, she has an energy when she walks in the building. She's like everybody that passes her by on any given day. You speak to any of her teachers who adore you. Right? And I mean that. But she's one of those students that when we talk about our 4 pillars at AMS, we talk about compassion, curiosity, responsibility, and resilience. She exudes this on a daily basis, and she tries everyone out here to do the same. And for that, we are extremely appreciative. And congratulations on the recognition of these awards.
And I'd like Mr. Pelling to come up. And actually, on December 1st, it was a wonderful luncheon at the Farmington Valley Country Club, sponsored by the Farmington Valley Superintendents Association. And we recognize Shelby, and we also recognize the next recipient.
Right, so on behalf of the high school, we're pleased tonight to honor Ayushi Hegde. Ayushi, in addition to being the recipient of the Farmington Valley Superintendent's Award, was one of the top academic students here in the class of 2018. She is kind, respectful, dedicated, and intelligent. She's one of 7 National Merit Scholar semifinalists. She got a perfect score on the ACT.
Wow.
She's a leader, having served in many leadership capacities such as the Special Olympics and Relay for Life. She completed an internship last summer at Jackson Laboratories where she deepened her knowledge of genes and human diseases. Ayushi is also a talented musician who is a member of the Avon High School Chamber Orchestra and also participates in ensembles at the University of Hartford. To summarize, Ayushi's citizenship, compassion for others, talent, and insightful nature have left their positive mark at Avon High School. She will be missed.
right, and before I dismiss everybody, as we customarily do, I'm going to exercise the prerogative of the chair to play with the agenda slightly, and I would like to thank the outgoing board members. And let me recognize each in turn. We'll start with you, Mr. Burke, as the most junior member who is leaving us to go on to the Board of Finance. You have worked with us for, I guess it's 4 years now, isn't it? I know, time flies when you're having fun. You've handled, and you've done a particularly good job with all of our financial matters, and you made it look easy, and you've maintained a good sense of humor while doing so, and we will miss you. And we do have a little token of appreciation. You're coming to me so that I can actually hand it to you. All right, well, I was going to...
There you are.
All right, so... I'm coming over, and I'm going to hand you the token of our appreciation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And the next person is Kathy Zaroli, who has stepped into the role of secretary, done an excellent job of it, has run the policy committee well for many years, and dare I say, has put up with me, which sometimes can be trying. So, and also you've done it. The joke that is not really a joke because it's true is when I get perturbed at her and I feel like reaching for a ball peen hammer, as I tell her, I call her up and we laugh a little bit together, and then everything's okay. And she's been a good person to work with, and we will miss you. And last, and certainly not least, is Peggy Rell. Peggy has been chair of the Board of Education for a number of years, has led it through ups and downs, and has also had to put up with me, which sometimes can be trying, as she's kind enough not to remind me in public. We appreciate you. We appreciate what you've done, and I know it's taken a big chunk out of your life, and we'd like to recognize that. Thank you so very much. So now anyone who wants to leave after the festivities may, but if you'd like to stay, we'd welcome you to stay. But if you would like to leave, I understand people have pressing things to do, particularly in light of the season. So we'll pause for a moment so that no one will feel obliged to stay. All right, next item, approval of minutes. In accordance with our tradition, we only approve Board of Education full minutes. So we won't approve the policy committee. Can I have a motion to approve A, B, D, E, F? I think Mr.
Can I make one minor edit?
Sure.
Okay. Just on page 22, where it says Mr. Burke, just change to, Mr. Burke also asked if the OPEB contribution by the board is the full annual required contribution, given the 2015 ARC number was over 1 million. Just in case the...
You're going to have to say that again, and clearly for the...
Mrs. Zaroli.
Should I email it to you? Because I emailed it to you as well.
Just show us where to carrot it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. With...
In case anyone wants to take my designation away.
So I know it's there, but I don't know what he said.
All right. So
One other change on page 2.
page 2. Hang on a second. B6.
The first line, I believe it's kids in grade 11 that took the SATs, not in grade 1.
They're very gifted and talented in grade one.
All right, we will certainly change that to reflect grade 11. 6, first line. Not grade 1. All right. Any other corrections? All right. May I have a motion to approve as corrected?
So moved.
All right, Mr. Burke moves, and then Mrs. Rell seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries unanimously. Excellent. Communications from the public. Does anyone from the public wish to address us? Come on forward, and let me turn on my watch because we give you 3 minutes in accordance with our usual procedure. And if you could tell us your name, because I know I've seen you before, but I regret to report I've forgotten your name, and I apologize.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Lazinsk. I've come before you this evening to say thank you to Mrs. Rell and Mrs. Zaroli as they end their service on the Board of Education and for their years of dedicated service to this board and to the school district. During Mrs. Rell's and Mrs. Zaroli's tenure on this board, the school district grew significantly, and if my two children are any indication, the entire student body has thrived. I would especially like to acknowledge the volunteerism and selfless service of Mrs. Rell during her tenure on the Board of Education, to include many years as chairperson. Mrs. Rell's commitment to this town's young people has extended beyond her work on the Board of Education. She and Mr. Rell have been a powerful and positive influence on countless numbers of Boy Scouts over many years. Long after her own sons left scouting, Mrs. Rell and her late husband continued to lead and guide Boy Scout Troop 274. I can also tell you that as my son worked through his Eagle Scout project, Mrs. Rell kept not only Jordan focused, but she was a calming influence to me as well as obstacles were met. Much like outgoing, long-time member of the Board of Finance, Tom Gugliotti, Mrs. Rell and Mrs. Zaroli left their politics and political agendas at the door when carrying out Board of Education business. I encourage all Board of Education members to do so as well. And I imagine I still have some time left, Mr.
You do.
Another subject, please. I just want to call to your attention, this was a Hartford Courant article from Sunday, December 10th. It pertained to the school shooting in Aztec, New Mexico, 2 or 3 days prior. It was reported in this article that the shooter, who was 21 years old, was able to disguise himself as a student, mingle in with the actual students, and kill 2 of them. I bring this up to encourage you to change the policy of an open campus. The time has come. When I sat in on the selection committee that recommended the hiring of Principal Pelling, I asked then candidate Pelling his views about the open campus policy, and at that time, Mr. Pelling questioned that policy. The constant coming and going of students who have open periods and who leave the high school for lunch and other reasons creates more opportunities for someone looking to do harm to the school. Your responsibility to make all our schools safe far outweighs the privilege of a student to leave. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments, and I know Mr. Pelling heard them.
Thank you, Adam.
And thank you for your kind words about Mrs. Rell and Mrs. Zaroli. All right, we're going to skip 4A because our student representatives, Amir Johnson and Heather Monroe, are not here. Financial report, Heather Michaud.
So as I reported to the Finance Subcommittee, it works. I really don't have too much to say because we had a non-eventful month, but we did make our first payment for transportation at just over $1.1 million. It's a little late this year, but they had a changeover in staffing at Specialty Transportation, so we received an invoice a little bit later than normal, reconciled it a little bit later, but anyway, that's the largest change on your financial report this month.
All right, excellent. Questions? Hearing none. We'll move on to Mrs. Donner Russick. Would you care to talk about Algebra 1AB pilot?
I would like to.
Excellent, thank you.
So for the past 4 years, we've had approximately 35 to 45 students each year needing to repeat Algebra 1 when they move from 8th grade to 9th grade. If you recall, when we rewrote the math curriculum, we moved Algebra 1 down to the middle school because we had so many students taking it at that point. Additionally, we have about 20 students each year who do come up after completing Algebra 1, take geometry as a freshman, but then they need to take an integrated algebra course during their sophomore year as opposed to moving on to Algebra 2 just to shore up the skills. So we've been watching this issue the past couple of years to see, is it a curriculum issue the way we have restructured the curriculum, but we needed a few students to go through or classes to go through to make that determination? Or really was it more of a developmental pacing issue, that's more student-based issue? This also came up in the review last year when we did a full review, K-12, of the math curriculum revision that we had done. So what we've determined, it really is more of a developmental pacing issue than a curriculum issue, and that students would benefit from taking Algebra 1 over a 2-year period of time as opposed to repeating the course. Because what we're finding is as students take that course, we're still having some issues there. So what this would look like is students would take Algebra 1A in 8th grade and Algebra 1B in 9th grade. The Algebra 1A would cover linear functions, and the Algebra 1B would cover exponential and quadratic functions. So this would give our students that opportunity to really develop a solid understanding of the linear functions before they move on to those more complex mathematical problems. We found that students that repeat the course here at the high school, we need to reteach the linear functions because they haven't developed a solid enough understanding of that to do the more advanced pieces of those math courses. With the change, the students would still be on track. So right now, if they don't pass the course, they take Algebra 1 in 8th grade, Algebra 1 in 9th grade, and then move on to geometry. This way they would take Algebra 1A in 8th grade, 1B in 9th grade, and then be in geometry in 10th grade. So there's no change to that sequence. It's just we're slowing down to give them the chance to build that strong foundation. Currently we have about 34 students who are struggling in Algebra 1 in 8th grade that we would like to recommend, that would be recommended at this point in time to take algebra again as we make course recommendations. So our plan starting second semester is to pilot an Algebra 1 course. Again, the curriculum's not changing, we're just spreading it out over the 2 years. And then next year the students would take Algebra 1B as 9th graders. So once we finalize the list, we're looking at the list to see which students would really benefit from this. We're looking at their summative assessments from 8th grade. We're looking at district assessments. We look at their state assessments. We're looking at their DRP scores. So we're bringing all of those pieces together. So once we finalize that list, and we wanted to look very carefully to make sure that we're not developing a class that's comprised of the subgroups. And about 2/3 are general ed students and about 1/3 are subgroup students. So we don't have a class made up completely of subgroup students that we have had some concerns about previously, especially up here at the high school. So once this list is finalized, our teachers will reach out to parents. They will call them. They will explain what the course looks like, how it will be structured, what that will mean for their student. And if the parent and student agree, we will have them do the 1A this year and move into the 1B. So tonight I just really wanted to provide you with an update of the concern that we've shared and some of you have shared with myself in terms of the Algebra 1 moving up to 9th grade and the number of retentions that we're trying to make that a better opportunity for our students.
Questions? Just to make sure I understand, so this is going to be some students that are going to be spread out over 2 years, not every student?
Correct. Right now we have about 35 students that we're looking at that meet the criteria. There are 5 what we call kind of cuspy that we will probably leave in the Algebra 1 and provide more intervention and support. But the other students are, struggling with it. We have a number of students already in intervention. Some of the students are new to the district and haven't had the math sequence that we have in place here in Avon prior to arriving. So
Okay.
It hits a lot of different components.
All right, so it's not necessarily easy to predict who you think would benefit from this, but certainly after the 8th grade year, or certainly halfway in, who would benefit?
Halfway in, we know, but we're also looking at how can we make that, designation very clearly after 7th grade. So we're looking at creating the rubrics of really determining who could benefit from it in 7th grade, so we can slow down at the beginning of the year instead of halfway through the year of slowing that down. But in the future would also give us the opportunity, if we have a student that starts out in Algebra 1 and then is struggling, that we could make that shift mid-year also.
Okay. And since it takes what would have normally been a one-year course for us and makes it a two-year course, do they lose anything at the top end, or how would that be handled? So normally, ninth graders would be doing, I guess, Geometry 1, ninth grade, and I don't know what the cycle is in math, but...
Then Algebra 2, Calc, but what they would be losing really are the higher electives, math electives in 12th grade.
Okay.
But they would lose that anyways if they're repeating.
If they're repeating it, correct.
As
Right.
ninth graders, this is better because they're at least having success. They can have success because it's a two-year course as opposed to not doing it
Right.
successfully in 8th grade and then having to repeat it in 9th grade. Planned out for those people.
Right.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, but
Great.
I just, I would imagine if they did particularly well, that they also could double up on math their final year if they wanted to.
Correct.
Okay.
Plain desire.
Well,
Yeah, no, no.
yet you never know. I doubled up on some stuff in high school myself, which, may not have been the intelligent thing to do, but I did it anyway. Questions? Do you need anything from us?
Just more information before it goes out to parents.
All right, excellent. Okay, next item is the consent calendar. Does anyone want to pull anything off of it? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the short consent calendar as written? Mrs. Rell moves.
Second.
Mrs. Early seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries unanimously. Old business, high school new course recommendation.
This is the course that we tabled last time, and I've asked John Salerni, the Department Coordinator for Science, to join us this evening to give us a quick overview of the ECE AP Physics with Calc course and the recommendation, and then to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Salerni.
Good evening, thank you for having me. So I'll give you a quick background on the physics, a little more complex than you would expect. You're probably all familiar with biology, chemistry, physics as core high school courses. It turns out that the biology and chemistry are a little different than physics. Regardless of what science major you go into in college, you would take a one-year intro course in bio and chemistry. Physics is a little different. If you become an engineer, or planning to become an engineer or a physics major, there's a separate track that you take in college where you take physics with calculus. Otherwise, you take physics with algebra. Most high schools only offer physics with algebra, although the AP does offer both an algebra and a physics with calculus-based physics course. A few schools do offer that course with calculus as a second-year course. We've never offered it. What happened a few years ago was the AP people did a revision of the AP physics curriculum, and they realized there was just too much content to cover in 1 year. They had been fighting for years, going back and forth. They would take out a few topics, put a different topic in, and there was just still too much in there. So they ended up about 3 years ago splitting the AP Physics courses into two courses, AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2. In response to that, we took and made our top course here at the high school, AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2 all in 1 year. In order to do that, we essentially have to have double time. So the kids commit to 2 periods, they get 2 credits, and they spend an awful lot of time in physics. There's been some issues with that, and that it's difficult to schedule and staff. It fills up a lot of the periods in the student's day. And so we revisited that recently. Part of the revisit is because we recently started adopting ECE courses, and all of teachers were certified to teach UConn courses. So we were looking at how we could integrate that opportunity into the AP, the honors, and other courses that we're offering. So as we looked at all of these physics courses, we decided it made more sense to offer this AP Physics C option with calculus. We have probably 15 to 20 or more students every year who have been taking the AP Physics 1, AP Physics 2 combo, and who are interested in sort of an engineering type of track in college. And so while they're getting a great experience in physics and a comprehensive background, they're not getting the exposure with the calculus that would actually give them kind of a leg up in freshman year of college. No matter how well you do on the AP Physics 1 and 2 exam, if you go on to become a physics major or an engineering major, the schools can't really count it because it's not physical calculus. So we're looking at solving a few problems. One is not having the course be 2 periods a day. Our other AP courses are 1 1/4 or 1 1/2, which means although it takes a little more time on their schedule, they do have study halls for some of those periods. It takes away some of the scheduling issues and staffing issues that we have, and it gives them an opportunity to get some credit for an AP Physics with calculus course, which would count more substantially for college. We also would piggyback on that, and because we have 2 teachers that are certified at UConn to teach physics with calculus at UConn, they could double dip and get 4 credits at UConn for the first semester course, physics with calculus, which transfers to a lot of schools, but certainly if you went to UConn, you would be 100% exempt from taking that course if you were becoming an engineering major or any other science major. So that's a quick background on how we came to this position, but we're looking at keeping AP Physics 1, but adding AP Physics C. The AP Physics C would be for just the very, very top group. There is a little bit of calculus in it and some tougher problem solving. We're fairly confident that the top group that we have now will be able to handle that we can introduce the calculus in the context of physics, and we would still have the AP Physics 1 option for the next tier down of students who are still high ability and motivation. So I think we can maintain what we have now and then add that extra perk, I think, for the top group is going on that engineering track. Hope that wasn't too quick. Questions?
Oh, okay, Mr. Speedman.
So I just want to understand how many periods each is going to be. So AP Physics C, the new course, is going to be 1 period or 2 periods going forward?
So the AP Physics course that was AP Physics 1 and 2 and was 2 periods would now be offered as AP Physics 1 period, but for an entire year.
Okay, so there'll be no more AP Physics 2.
The AP Physics 2 would not be offered. AP Physics 1 would prepare the students for the AP Physics 1 exam, which is a full exam like AP Chemistry or AP Bio, and also UConn 1201 if students wish to do that, which would give them 4 credits at UConn. And then the AP Physics C would be a 1 and a half period course, which is what we do with AP Chem and AP Bio. So it has an extra period or so a week to take into account the extensive lab work that's associated with it. And that would they could also apply and get 1401 credit at UConn for physics with calculus. So 1 period all year for AP Physics 1, 1 and a half periods all year for AP Physics C. Put that more in line with what we're doing with chemistry and biology.
Okay, that makes more sense. The confusion was that it didn't explain that AP Physics 1 was still going to be offered as a full year course, because we don't have any changes to that. But you're saying it's the same curriculum as your semester course, which was more than 1 period, but now it'll be a full year.
Right, essentially the same curriculum, but instead of being 2 period, double time in 1 semester spread over the entire year.
So will there still be CP, Honors, AP Physics 1, and AP Physics C, all 4 of those levels you expect?
At this point, until we see where students are, my guess is that the students are going to see the value of the AP Physics 1 and spread it over an entire year. It's not very different in terms of rigor content than our honors course, and there's obviously a lot more benefits to doing the AP and the 1201 at UConn. If you're going to work at that level anyway, you can get that sort of double credit for it for college.
So the AP Physics 1 may replace the honors at some point if the enrollment dictates
Correct.
that. Okay. And then another question is, the challenge for most students who are juniors, as you expressed, it's AP Physics with calculus. They haven't had calculus yet,
Correct.
unless they're one of those students who skipped 8th grade and went to 9th grade for geometry when they were only in 8th grade. And I know you said the 15 to 20 students, you probably have a better idea of who can fit that than I do. I just want to make sure it still makes sense for us to have physics as a junior year class. And we used to have chemistry as junior year, mostly in
Yeah, without
physics
going
as
too
senior.
far off on a tangent. So This year will be the pilot of the new state science exam. We were early on the curve of prepping for that, and that new exam, which used to be sophomore year, moved to junior year and went from maybe being 10 or 15% physics to being 35% physics. And that's why we did the swap, so that all of our students are going to be well prepared for that test. They're going to have a substantial physics course, very small amount of chemistry on that exam. So we have integrated the chemistry into 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, made the 11th grade a significant physics course, and we're hoping that kids are going to be very well prepared for that exam. As far as the calculus, I don't know if anybody here has taken physical calculus, but the first semester of physical calculus course has really minor calculus. It's basic derivatives and integrals that we're pretty confident we can teach. In the class historically, there's been 5, 6 students maybe who are in calculus junior year, and then there's the rest of the group is generally high flyers. They're in trig pre-calc, but there's super strong math students on the math team and everything else. So based on our experience for many, many years with kids in that group, that subset, we're pretty confident that we can integrate the calculus, teach them that little bit they need along the way. In the end, the Physics C, more so than the calculus, becomes a more complex problem-solving course than the AP Physics 1. We're already sort of teaching at that level anyway to prep the kids for work at a competitive college. So I really don't see a significant difference in the course as it goes from being AP Physics 1, 2 to being AP Physics C. Really just a little bit of tweaking, a little bit of calculus here and there that's, I don't think it's going to be a stumbling block.
Okay. And one of the other things I noticed in the course of studies, before I knew that we were keeping AP Physics 1, I was looking at virtual high school to see if students had other opportunities to take physics. And I think our virtual high school is not updated because it still says AP Physics B and AP Physics C.
That's 4 years old now.
Right, so that I think should reflect AP Physics 1 because that's what they do, just like you're proposing for the high school now.
Correct.
Okay. And just my overall concern is I feel like we don't have a communicated vision for the high school in terms of our offerings of AP, ECE, and confusion on the students and just community level on where that falls. So at some point I feel like that needs to be explained better in some form of communication, not on you and your department, but across the entire high school.
Sure. And to be perfectly blunt with you, we are just getting people certified in the last 6 months and starting up these courses and looking at what the UConn curriculum is versus the AP curriculum and seeing how they compare to what we're already doing. And in a lot of cases, we're finding they align pretty closely, so we're not talking significant changes, but we're still somewhat finding our way. And we'll certainly revise as we go along as we get more information and see how students respond. And we're still trying to figure out how colleges respond, both for admissions and for credit acceptance to AP versus EC, et cetera. So.
Right, and just one last comment, which I expressed last time you weren't at the meeting, but the concern that too much of what we do sometimes is helping the students at the top or the bottom, and majority of our students do fall in the middle, and we've seen on surveys that there are many in the community who've expressed that concern, that is where the focus is. So that was the other thing that drew our attention to this course, and it's really focusing on the elite, and maybe, through the way you design it, it may help the other students, but that's not the way it comes across when you're just proposing the top.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, our intention is that some of the students, most of the students are taking honors now, will now be able to hopefully take an AP course in physics, and that won't take away in any way, shape, or form from the group of students that are taking CP physics, which, by the way, I go to lots of science supervisors and the science meetings, is, I think, a more substantial course than a lot of towns even around us. So CP physics here is a very good preparation for college experience, and AP is just another big step above that. So
Right, from what you're saying, I hope that...
array of, what we're very proud of, I think, in the science department is that we have some significant different levels where we really meet the needs of a lot of different groups of students.
So from what you're explaining, I would hope that the science teachers in 10th grade would encourage them to take that AP Physics 1, at least, instead of the honors, and have more AP students in physics.
That is our intent.
Okay.
Further questions? Mrs. Young?
So I also share some of the same concerns that Jay had expressed, and I apologize for asking you to review again how this positions us as compared to other high-performing high schools in our area in terms of trying to give us an engineering track, per se? How does this truly put us more towards that?
Yeah, it's a tough question. If you look at 10 schools that are in Birdby, some in Fairfield County, some in Farmington Valley here, everyone is doing such different things. I say it's probably more common that schools like some nearby schools, for example, would have all students take physics as a freshman, and then as a senior, they would take some science course as an AP. So in other words, they will take 3 sciences, and in their 4th year, they will just repeat one of them. Well, our philosophy has always been to take take each group, whatever their ability is, and give them 4 years of really strong options that really meet their needs, and not to have them replicate or duplicate any course. But like I said, there are towns where they are doing a really introductory physics course freshman year, and then students will take AP Physics C in their senior year as a second course. And that's certainly a viable option. It's just not, it hasn't been our philosophy, and it's not the way the rest of our courses are structured. Generally speaking, our students will, Topham, for example, would do AP straight through. They'll take each course once, and they've been very, very successful, both in terms of the course, the grades here, but also in terms of AP test scores are very, very high. So that group is certainly capable of doing that and not doing the course twice. What it comes down to, and this is why, again, the AP Physics 1, AP Physics 2 is a problem, is the same kids that are taking AP Physics 1, AP Physics 2, and other AP Chemistry, science courses are also musicians, and they're in a 5th year of a language and everything else, and it just becomes almost impossible for them to fill a schedule out. And so the idea that we would have kids, again, some kids could choose to take this AP Physics C as a second physics course in their senior year. It certainly would be open to them. And we do have a handful of kids who take, we used to take chemistry in their junior year and then take AP Chemistry as a second in their senior year. It just becomes very difficult to fit your schedule, especially when it's a period and a half course. You're talking about blocking out essentially 2 periods out of your schedule. So we go on a different route, and we really try to give them offerings so they can do the core sciences at whatever level works for them, straight through with no duplicates. I hope that answers your question.
Further questions? Mrs. Blaya?
Thank you so much. I really actually understood. None of my kids have actually taken that new, or the physics classes, but it sounds exciting. Sounds like you guys are in the right direction and unique. I guess my question would be, is there any unintended consequence of eliminating the AP Physics 2 that we are missing, or that might be a pitfall if we go forward with this, that you would predict?
We don't really. I mean, there's pros and cons to all of this. And as I said, essentially AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2, which would be essentially 2 whole years of physics, replaces 3 semesters of college physics. But very few students are getting all that credit in college. And the students that are taking AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2, many of them are going off to be engineers and physics majors, and they're not getting any credit because they did the course with algebra. So if we can give an opportunity to do the course with calculus and even knock out 1 semester that they're completely get credit for or exempt from, that just frees them up freshman year of college to take other electives, get a head start in something else.
So you don't anticipate a huge backlash if that particular path is eliminated?
No, the other thing I should say, so even our AP Physics 1 course, we anticipate that we can cover the curriculum in that course probably by February or March. The exam is in May, so from March to June, we'll be doing other select topics in physics, which are really part of the AP Physics 2 curriculum. Although when we totally prep them for that exam, and certainly not by May, they're going to still get a full comprehensive physics education. So there's really, I don't think there's any real detriment to this plan. There's going to be more opportunities to kids, hopefully.
Thank you.
Further questions?
I think I now do have one.
Go ahead.
Only because you brought it up.
Okay.
You mentioned there's, obviously, and I understand this is the case with anything, there's pros and cons. And I think part of our responsibility is at least hear the cons. So from your point of view, what are some of the cons to this?
Well, I think the only logistical thing I can say is that right now, someone could take the top 20 students or so, take AP Physics 1 and AP Physics 2, have both of those on their transcript, And if they go on to become an English major or something, they could possibly get credit for 2 courses because they're a non-science major. So for a few kids, there may be some benefit to getting those 2 courses on your transcript. For somebody who's going to be a science major, not really.
So for the science majors, it's a huge pro.
Yes.
Okay. Any other cons, or that's pretty much the only one?
Not that I can think of. Like I said, in the balance of things, I think the course will be about the same level of rigor as what we're offering now to the top groups. So we're fairly confident kids are going to be successful.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any further questions? All right, hearing none, can I have a motion? Mrs. Shute moves to approve. All right, who would like the second?
Second.
Mr. Burke seconds. All right, any comments? Motion having been duly made and seconded. All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you, John.
All right, next item, new business, item 1. Discussion and possible action regarding the 2018-2019 Board of Ed budget. Mrs. Toddyfoot?
Oh. Wait a minute, we're passing along a proposed motion
Oh, all
to
right.
start the conversation.
Well, since we're the kind of people that actually start discussing before we even make the motion, are there any comments that you would like to be? I know,
I'm
I
learning your
know.
ways.
We have strange ways, I'm willing to admit that. Are there any comments that you would like to make ahead of time?
Well, I appreciate the fact that the board entertained listening to all of the department heads and principals, and I do think that the team of administrators and central office personnel did a great job putting the budget together. And I hope that you like it, and I hope you understand it, most importantly, understand it. And I hope that it stays pretty much intact, if possible, because I think it would be a great and wonderful budget for your next superintendent to work with next year.
Excellent, all right. And Mr. Burke is going to have the dubious distinction of being on the Board of Finance when he
I know.
hears about the budget. So, all right, do we have any questions for the interim superintendent? Well, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
I'm very supportive of this budget. I'm very excited for what you've presented. So my question is based on what I asked everybody when they were here about if they had a wish to put something in. And it might be answered in upcoming agenda items. So when I saw the Title I grant, I don't know if we can skip ahead to do that, but I just wanted to confirm if the teaching assistants were actually confirmed for next year's
The
budget.
Title I grant is for this fiscal year.
For this fiscal year. So that means we're going to be able to put them in place this year. The funding has come in.
The funding for the title grants has come in. The funding has just come in for the open choice grant, so I have to sit down and figure out how many positions that will completely cover. So I'll have all of that for you by January.
Okay, so it doesn't have
But-
any guarantee on next year in terms of
Correct,
doing
because
that.
the grants will come through again next year.
Okay, so that would be one amendment that I would propose us putting in funding for teaching assistants for the K to 2 grade level, because it seems to be a substantive aspect, unless Heather has something to add.
So I'm sorry, I don't know if anyone's background, my background comes from a very heavily funded district, so I'm pretty intimate with grants, though Donna does write them. So the danger in moving particularly positions or other expenditures from a grant into a general fund is it is called supplanting. So you can never put it back into a grant. And in a district like Avon, we find it challenging to properly adhere to the guidelines placed upon these grants and spend them if we cannot maintain positions like teaching assistants and tutors, utilizing those dollars that, in this case, the federal government designates for exact items like this. So just that's the danger of it, and I would just caution the board that it would be a challenge for Avon.
Okay, so my only, I guess my question is, in listening to it, knowing that the state that we're in and the lack of guarantee for getting that funds and how important those roles seem to play, I'm compelled to still want to put that in because I think that it's going to support our students significantly, that they really benefit from having that. So while I understand that if you make it a position, you're no longer able to ask as a grant, clearly makes sense because you're already funding for it. So I guess what I'm saying is if we feel that strongly that those positions are necessary and we're in a position this year where we haven't had teaching assistants because the funding didn't arrive yet, I guess I'm thinking preemptively or proactively to avoid that from happening next year by having them in place. So that would be that argument that I would make in favor of funding that. My second amendment would be, I thought that Kathy brought up a good point in terms of our board clerk, but then there is a new hire, and I didn't know if that clerk typist had anything to do. Okay, so there was some discussion that perhaps we weren't being generous enough in asking for funding to have someone do our minutes and attend our meetings. So I wanted to voice that if we wanted to have a conversation about that topic. So it's really adding, it's not taking anything from what you've proposed.
All right, I think the questions have been answered. So what I propose to do is to ask for a motion in accordance with the written motion distributed, and then if Mrs. Shute wants to make a motion to amend, we'll take a vote on that separately.
Okay, is it open for discussion?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Because I need a little bit more direction. I feel like
Go ahead.
When we talk about the tutors at the kindergarten, these are teaching assistants. The SAC position, that is a funded budget position.
The tutor positions are all included within the general budget and the projected grants for next year. So the tutor positions,
Including SAC.
including SAC, because that's a tutor intervention position, have all been rolled forward, for lack of a better word, into the next budget. What's the questionable ones, based on grants and funding, are the teaching assistants. The teaching assistants are provided one per grade level to, float between the classrooms and assist with the small group instruction and assist the teachers. So there are two different roles. One is intervention and one is assistance.
So do we know what numbers we're talking about here, adding to this bottom line?
It's about $25,000 per teaching assistant. Just shy of that, but for easy math.
And we're, I love easy math. And we're thinking, you're talking about 3 positions.
3 times 2, because we have 2 elementary schools.
3 times 2, I got that.
Got that?
Okay. So, I'm with you. So we're talking about 6 new positions at $25,000.
It's about 150.
About 150,000.
Okay, further questions? All right.
I get one.
Go ahead.
Just so I understand what Heather said, I think what I heard was if we decided to try to add that $150,000 to the budget as a budgeted position, we're basically assuring ourselves that that money's not going to be granted to us through this other grant.
Correct.
Not that it's not going to be granted to Avon, because these are formulary grants. So it's based on a formula the federal government puts forth. It's just that we cannot spend the money on these positions. So we would have to find something else to spend it on. And here it's challenging.
So you're saying you don't necessarily have an idea of other things we could spend that money on, because there's not something that would be properly earmarked for that type of money?
Right. As you know, salaries are a very large part of what you can utilize grants for safely. It becomes difficult when you're talking about a number like $150,000 that the federal government designates specifically for a type of intervention or a type of practice, we'll call it, to spend $150,000 on that.
Further questions? All right, my suggestion is to move the motion proposed by the superintendent, and then if parties want to amend it after it's been moved and second, then we can do that and have a separate vote on that. Is that agreeable? All right, who would like to move the motion, which is motion to adopt a 2018 19 Board of Education General Fund gross budget in the amount of $57,478,604.91, having a gross increase of 2.08 over the prior fiscal year. Mrs. Zaroli moved, thank you.
I'll second.
Mr. Spivak seconds. All right, are there any amendments that anyone would like to propose? Mr. Shute?
I guess it could be done as separate amendments, so I'll put it out there just as a show of support for our staff, and I completely understand the grant process, and what it's just meant to really secure that we value the roles that these teaching assistants play. So I would like to make an amendment to the motion to fund TAs for the K through second grade levels in the upcoming budget. Is that an appropriate way to say that?
Okay. So do we have a second?
Second.
All right, Mrs. Young seconds. Is there discussion? All right,
Does that increase spending?
that does increase spending, so it would increase over the 208
Okay.
by 150,000?
Roughly.
Roughly.
What you said.
Okay. Well, that's if you pay them 25,000, but that doesn't include perks, medical, blah, 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 whatever. So normally you would say increase it by 1.5, so they get you up to 2.25 roughly.
And Jean Ann, you're already employing this tactic within the special education portion of the budget. I believe it was part of Kim's presentation. So you're...
That is correct, but she has a plan for those funds if the budget goes forward and is adopted
Yeah.
and approved.
But
by
you're what Deb is proposing, you're already employing where it can be done within the budget. So,
Well, I'm not sure
not
that
with
I'm,
that specific grant fund, but there's intergovernmental revenues that you're finding a way to keep in the budget, but allocating those dollars to expenses that are earmarked for that.
I think the difference
Yeah,
is what
that-
we're
that's
moving
what I
out
thought.
of the special education grant are certified teachers. So these are certified teaching positions, where our teaching assistants are not certified teachers, and we tend to have quite a bit of turnover in those positions because we're fortunate to hire certified teaching assistants that are looking for teaching jobs. So I think it's kind of apples and oranges in some ways, because one's a certified staff member and one, what we value greatly because they perform a great service, are not certified staff. And the minute we move those over into the general budget, it means we can no longer use the grant funds because it would be supplanting that position. So with special education, there are a lot of other things that you can purchase through the grant funds, like assistive technology and different things, which we don't have the luxury of doing under some of these title grants because they're written very tightly as to what you can use those funds for. That's just the difference of why we're moving and.
yeah, and can I just say to your question or point, if you think of it that the positions that Kim has in the grant are essential, these positions are helpful, but we couldn't live half a year without 6 teachers in special education, whereas we have with the teaching assistants. So that's another, thing that you have to think about. And as well as that she has a plan, Kim has a plan for not supplanting and buying things.
Got it,
I have a
okay.
procedural question. Can we table an amendment, or is it a package vote at this point?
No, what happens, well, yeah, you can have a motion to table an amendment.
That we could vote on the budget and then table the amendment?
Correct.
Until I understand it more? I mean, is that possible?
Well, yes, it has to go to the town.
Vote on the budget.
Then the budget goes to the town. And the question is, do you want it to go to the town without it? Or, we can also have a vote on the amendment itself. So the answer is yes, we can do either. A motion to table does have priority. So,
It would delay the budget getting.
right, and which we can do by tabling the whole question if we want, in which case, a new and different Board of Ed will follow up. I've got a list of everybody going through, so I believe Mr. Spivak was first.
I just want to say that I understand Deb's concerns, and I agree with what you're saying, the value of those positions. But at the same time, after listening to Heather and Donna explain our position, I don't want to jeopardize our ability to use those grant funds and then never in the future have that position. So I feel like it'll put us in a lesser place when we're going to be looking for more funds in the future and in more difficult times. So I don't feel like I can support that amendment for that reason.
Okay, Mrs. Blea, I had you next. Was that procedural question your only question?
That was, yeah.
All right, then Mrs. Shute, followed by Mrs. Young.
So my only reason for voicing it is just that the funding didn't come in at the beginning of the year. So they've made concessions. They've been able to do it, but clearly it wasn't as easy of a situation as it could have been at that age level to have had that support in place. So it's just the disappointment in that the funding isn't guaranteed in a timely manner. So by providing for it, then we know we're going to start off their year having it, but I completely respect what you're saying at the same time. So I just want us to talk about it and make an informed decision that we think is proper moving forward, and also show my support for what was requested by Jess and by Noam in regards to how important these roles have played in their school buildings.
Excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Young.
So while these positions may not be certified, we can all recognize the value of these teaching assistants, particularly given the class sizes we have and the makeup of the class sizes in this day and age. My concern is, should it come to pass that these grant funds do not come in, where else in this budget could we find the money to fund those positions? So if you have any suggestions as to where you might cut something else in order to fund these positions, what might come to mind?
Also leaving aside the question of whether or not we could ask for a supplemental appropriation.
There is that.
There is that. I don't know if you can answer such a question cold.
Well, I think you always have to look at your enrollment, and we are looking at the enrollment at the middle school very carefully. We cut a half a team, but quite honestly, depending upon when we reach that tipping point, or your future, superintendent sees that as you get closer to the end of the year, you could probably eliminate 2 positions there, thereby eliminating an entire team overall. We've already cut 2. We've already cut 2 in this proposed budget. And I think as you get closer to July 1st, you always have better information in terms of other areas where you can adjust.
Right, and we're, unlike any other municipal board, we can actually reallocate between line items as we see fit. So, further questions? All right, I believe the motion to amend has been moved and seconded and is not being withdrawn. So, all those in favor, if you could say aye.
Aye.
All right, Mrs. Young, Mrs. Shute. Anyone else? Opposed? So that's Mrs. Rell, Mr. Burke, Mr. Spivak, Mr. Indiamanico, me, Mrs. Zaroli. So I would say the motion to amend fails. So then the question is, the motion to approve the budget is now timely. So any comments further on approving the budget?
I have clarification, sorry.
All right, sure.
Was that, were there any abstentions?
No.
Okay, thank you.
No, I was,
Whoops, did you abstain?
Abstention never came, but
I'm sorry.
abstained.
All right, Mrs. Blea, I
Actually,
apologize.
put me down in the first
Mrs.
either
Blea
way.
will put you down as abstaining. I apologize.
I feel like I needed to understand that a little bit more before I took action.
Mrs. Young.
So I understand that this is not going to pass, but I want to make it clear how important this is, at least in my opinion. We heard it loud and clearly from the building principals for those grades. So I just want that on the record.
Okay. Any further questions before we vote on the main motion? All right, hearing none, all in favor of the main motion to approve the budget? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? I don't want to forget that. All right, so carries unanimously. All right, excellent. So, and then next item is, well, we may have covered it already, the consolidated Title I, Title II, and Title III grants. Did you need to expand on that further?
If you'd like me to expand a little bit, I can.
Well, it's only if you feel obliged, or if you felt you covered it well enough, then I'll leave well enough alone.
Well, I saw a couple nods, so I'm thinking maybe I need to go a little further.
Go ahead.
On page 38, you will see an overview of the grants, and behind that, the budget backup pages that go with those grants. So the Title I grant, this year the district was awarded just shy of $116,000. That's a decrease of $86,000 from last year. This grant seems to roller coaster. We're high one year, low the next, high the next year. So I don't know quite what that formula is, but we do fluctuate heavily within the Title I grant. This will cover 5 of our tutors this year. So they will be at Pine Grove, Roaring Brook, the middle school, and Thompson Brook. There's a whole poverty formula you use to determine which schools qualify, and the high school did not qualify this year. Also, within that grant, we must expend some funds on homelessness, so we will use $200 to purchase some books and materials to educate people on homelessness and how to provide services to students if we have any students that are in that position. The Title II grant is basically a professional development grant. This year, we were awarded $31,000, just a little bit over that. That was an increase of $16,000 from last year. So as I said, these grants fluctuate. We will use those funds to continue supporting the team mentors for $9,600. We have always covered some of the team mentor stipends within this grant, and then the balance of that will be used in professional development for the Understanding by Design and Curriculum Facilitation Consultant, some training on culturally responsive practices, and the welcoming walkthrough protocol I shared with you last time. And then about $680 of those funds are allocated to the Farmington Valley Academy Montessori. Any private school within our area is eligible for some of the funds. The other 2 private schools declined the funding. Then the Title III is specifically for our English learners. This grant took about a $2,500 decline from last year. This grant, we are actually in a consortium with Windsor Locks, so they oversee the grant and we submit our documentation through Windsor Locks. Until a few years ago, we didn't reach the threshold to do that on our own. If we continue to meet the threshold, I will probably move the grant specifically to Avon instead of sharing, as we may not need that relationship any longer. And that grant will cover or partially fund a tutor at Pine Grove because that's where we have the highest number of our EL learners this year. Well, pretty much every year since I've been here.
All right. Questions? Mr. Spivak, it looks like you were contemplating something. No, all right.
Always, but no questions.
All right.
And we will need a motion just that you have been made aware of the grants. That's a requirement of the grants.
So a motion to thank you for your report or to approve the grants? Not
To approve the grants and thank me for my report.
All right. Mrs. Zaroli moves. Mrs. Shute seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, I've already completed my ruminations. Superintendent's update.
So you have before you the December hiring report, and you see that we have some retirements and some new hires for certified and non-certified, and 1 resignation.
Excellent. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. There's a question.
Yes.
On the transfer, I know Lucia Esposito was new to that position. Just want to understand why the transition there.
Do you want to speak to that?
I can speak to that. I actually spoke to Lucia regarding that, and it is personal reasons that she made that transfer.
I know she's been doing a good job in guidance from what I heard.
Yes,
so.
they're very sad down there, and she did a fabulous job there and is doing a fabulous job at Thompson Brook now.
Very welcoming.
The guidance
Great
department is
thing.
sad, and TBS is very happy.
Sometimes we do have double-edged swords. Would you like to talk about the December enrollment report?
The enrollment is up overall by 1 student and is certainly below what we anticipated our enrollment would be in August.
Okay. Well, we're doing much better than most districts, but apparently we're down just a little bit. All right, and
Correct.
you want to talk about the College Board AP District Honor Roll?
I sure do. Mr. Pelling shared this great news with me, I think it was Thursday of last week, And Avon received this distinction, or earned this distinction for the first time. And the reason, we're one of 10 high schools in Connecticut that received this honor, and one of 447 school districts nationwide. And I'll just read to you why we received it. The honor roll consists of 447 school districts in the United States and Canada that simultaneously achieved increases in access to advanced placement courses for a broader number of students, and also maintained or improved the rate at which their AP students earned scores of 3 or higher on the AP exam. So that's really wonderful, and it's the first time, and I hope that we can repeat it sometime.
Thank you. Well, congratulations, Mr. Pelling.
We're on it.
Good, all right. We've got you on the agenda for next year when you can tell us that we've got it again. All right.
Keith, I have a question on that, too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have
Go
no
ahead.
questions tonight. No, so I just appreciate and recognizing and hearing about that award, and credit to our students and our staff. But wanted updates from our last meeting at some point on our percentage participation in the AP courses versus other school districts, Durg A and Durg B, and just want to know if we can, have that at some point presented to the board.
As I shared, I think it was at the last board meeting, we'll put together something either for the January or February meeting that will talk about specifically that, but also what is ECE, what is AP, how do those all work?
Okay, thank you.
And I hope it would go before the Curriculum and Professional Practices Committee first, then to the board, so that, we start to use that mechanism to work together and inform everyone of what's going on. Good point.
Okay, further questions? All right, then communications from board members. All right.
Should I actually have a quick comment?
Sure.
Some prepared remarks.
Prepared remarks and a quick comment. All right.
I just want to take a quick minute to say thank you to Peggy and Kathy, two amazing women, both of which have had a tremendous impact on this district and the town. You have both contributed your heart and soul to the community. You have made tough decisions based on what was best for students and our community, not on what was popular. I personally remember one of those unpopular decisions and the criticism that you received. It's not easy telling a strong-willed, newly elected board member that you have to serve on the policy subcommittee, but you did, and it was the right call. All kidding aside, you provided an unwavering commitment to raising the achievement of and instilling a passion for learning in all of our students. There's no doubt that you set the bar high for all of us. Thank you for your selfless service to the Avon School District and the town of Avon. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will spread that on the record. So if you would care to give the secretary your notes, they were brief enough that we can literally put them in with quotes if you like, as is your prerogative to request. All right, you can think about it. Committees and liaison reports. Alternative Resources, Regional Services, Mr. Spivak. I guess the committee as currently composed will no longer exist past January 1st.
Right.
Okay. Would you like to make a final report?
No, we don't have anything.
All right, so they've prepared for the January 1st change. Audit, Mrs. Young.
So audit similarly will be being rolled into another committee, and once that committee is up and running, they will be reviewing the management letter. Probably could be as early as January, but we'll see.
All right, so I believe all the field work is done. Have we answered all the questions? I know there were follow-up questions, so we're all done on that. So the next step is they get us a draft audit letter and a draft management letter. So, all right. And do we have an expected time for that? You're not allowed to last, Mrs. Michaud.
I can't help it. I emailed last week and I emailed this week. I'm just hoping that I don't have to sign anything while I'm not in the state again.
Oh,
That's all I have. I'm sorry.
Yes, well, I do so enjoy hunting you down on vacation and making you sign things, yes, or signing them in your stead. My handwriting does not look like yours. All right, Mr. Burke, capital budget, anything to report?
We did not meet, and we're not going to meet.
Well, there you go. No hesitation whatsoever, and I hope the the audience on video appreciates the late-night jocular humor as we get to the end of the year. Communications/school climate and culture. Mrs. Blea.
I am really sorry to kind of put an end to all this fun, short reporting of committees.
No.
We had a really great last meeting of our climate meeting, climate committee on Monday. Donna and Kim and Jeanne were all present, and it was really wonderful. And I just wanted to kind of get in the habit of really reporting out what we're doing in these meetings. So forgive me for taking a few
No,
minutes.
I would like you to do that.
Because it was really exciting. The work that Donna reported on was really impactful, I think, for us to hear. One of the things that meant a lot to us was we started talking about the response to the climate surveys that go out annually, you know, and what do we do as a district to respond to people's, you know, thoughts and concerns and weaknesses and strengths. So I wanted to just let you guys know that PGS and RBS had very high percentages in both areas of culture and achievement. TBS had high rankings in both areas of culture and achievement, and collaboration was referenced as needing some work. AMS had high ratings for achievement and overall ratings for culture, and a need was expressed for procedures, guidelines, consistency, and discipline. AHS had high percentages of achievement and low percentages for culture. Environment, not feeling connected, not feeling involved in decision-making, and unclear policies and procedures, as well as discipline. So the action that they have taken is they have monthly meetings with the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, and the 5 building principals to work on pre-K through 12 consistency. Working with a small group of administrators, they review and revise K-8 retention regulations. Work with a small group of administrators to create flowchart templates for various crises throughout the district. They work with secondary principals to create progressive 7-12 discipline matrix. That would also include counseling and a support component. And they've shifted making development days from curriculum writing to K-8 focused on making curriculum accessible to all. So they're really doing really good work, and it was exciting for us to hear about it. And I was really appreciative, and we're going to be now going into the curriculum and professional practices, and we'll see who's on that committee. It was very popular when you sent out the doodle.
Yes, I haven't looked at the doodle recently, but I do recall it was a popular one.
Yeah.
So, excellent. No, we appreciate the fact that you have reported in depth, and it seems like communication is picking up, which is a good thing. All right. Finance, Mr. Spivak. There will be a finance committee in the future.
There will be, but I don't have anything new to report than what we've already seen financially tonight.
All right. Mrs. Rell, personnel.
Personnel, we're going to talk about in executive session.
Okay. So nothing otherwise to report. Excellent. Policy, Mrs. Zaroli.
I don't really have anything new other than I dropped off 2 heavy bags of policy manual and confidential stuff. I left it at the office today. So I think that's most of my confidential and policy stuff. And if I have more, I will happily clear out my house. And I wish best of luck going forward with continuing the good work that we've done. The only thing I'd like to say to Houston, which I probably should have said during communication from the board members, was I'd like to answer a question.
Sure.
I stand for and with the truth, way, and life.
How many words?
10.
Congratulations. Excellent. There you go. All right. For our audience, particularly our video audience, I'm well known for a particular question I tend to ask people who are being interviewed. And usually the question is, take a position for or against truth, justify in 10 words or less. And so now Mrs. Zaroli has done that, even though we didn't ask her the question yet. But thank you very much. I appreciate you working on that.
Didn't take long.
There you go. Curriculum Professional Development Council, Mrs. Shute.
Nothing to report at this time. Our next meeting won't be until February February, okay.
All right, February. Board Representative to Avon Board of Finance, Mr. Burke.
All we did was approve the final fiscal year transactions, which are going to go in the capper, and we had cupcakes for Tom Gugliotti.
Always a good thing. Mr. Gugliotti, as most of you know, or maybe some of our audience does not know, is finishing 24 years on the Board of Finance. And I believe I suggested to him that most people get less time for manslaughter. And he's done it without complaint. Town Council, Mrs. Rell.
Did not make it to the last meeting.
All right. And Capital Region Educational Council.
There was no meeting in December.
All right. So we are now down to communications from the public. Does anyone from the public wish to say anything? Why don't you come on up to speak to the microphone so that at least the video people can hear you.
Thank you. So first of all, thank you to the outgoing board members for your service as a member of the community. I appreciate all the work you've done. And as a parent of 5 kids in all Avon Public Schools who are reaping the benefits of these great schools, I know they also appreciate it, and I hope you also get a chance to think about your legacy because you put a lot of time into this. So thank you. The second question was about the algebra adjustment, I think, between 8th and 9th grade. It sounds like a positive move, and I like what I'm hearing initially. I had a question about, you mentioned that, I forgot to start my timer.
Oh, I forgot to start my timer too. All right, well, there you go.
We're both guilty, I'll start now. I think you mentioned part of that some of the students who would be part of that, those 35 students, came from a different district. And I'm curious if that district was different, it's a different state. And part of that question is, Common Core was supposed to mitigate some of that concern with the children moving from different states to other states. So I'm wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
And if I could just interject, there might be an assumption that they came from a single district, and so that might be the first
Or
question.
states that didn't follow Common Core.
Right.
You know,
And truthfully, I didn't look from where they came to us. It really is, are they new to the district or not? But not every state or district has moved Algebra 1 down to grade 8. Others still have the standard grade 8, and then Algebra 1 is in the high school, so.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to you joining us January 1st.
Thank you.
Further questions, comments? Come on up.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Weston. I am a parent of a senior at Avon High School. I am also a robotics mentor, and I'm now in charge of a 4-H club, a 4-H robotics club here in Avon. What I really wanted to talk to you about, or ask you about, is the fractured nature of the robotics club in Avon High School right now. We would like to reconcile this situation. The students right now are feeling a bit uncertain as to whether or not the school will fully support them, and they are very adamant about maintaining 4-H club adult volunteer, I don't want to say autonomy, but to allow them to conduct meetings. And I was wondering if you would be open to considering this. If we were to combine forces, would we be open to considering 4-H volunteers, adult volunteers, to oversee meetings?
Well, Mrs. Pattyfoot, I saw you reach for the microphone. Would you like to make a comment?
Well, I do think that this is something that Mr. Pelling and the advisor at the high school should respond to.
Okay, so we'll have Mr. Pelling follow up with you. I think I can say on behalf of the board that we are very proud of our robotics program and certainly have no desire or inclination to terminate it in any way, shape, or form. So, but obviously I understand there's been some issues involving it, and so those need to be resolved, and certainly Mr. Pelling would be in the first position to speak to you about that, and then we'll see where it goes from there. but
Okay.
we appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Weston. Further questions, further comments from the public? All right. Next item is going into executive session. Can I have a motion to go into executive session at 8:21? Mrs. Early moves. Can I have a second?
Second.
Mrs. Rell seconds. All in favor? Aye. Opposition? None. Abstentions? None. Carries unanimously. We'll take a 5-minute break so that we can.
Invite and
Yes,
thank you.
we'll invite in the administration. We will note that on the record.